They're brothers. They're plumbers.
Oh no. Mario! Luigi!
They're on the trail of a kidnapped princess and a mystical meteorite.
It's incredible!
That gives anyone who possesses it the power to rule the universe.
Get me the rock! Come and get it, lizard breath!
Now, they must rescue the princess.
Luigi!
Super Mario Brothers. This ain't no game.
Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Classic Gaming Brothers. I'm Zach.
And I'm Seth.
And we're the Classic Gaming Brothers.
That's right. We are the Classic Gaming Brothers.
We are. Did you have fun at Too Many Games, Seth?
I did.
What was your favorite part?
My favorite part was hanging out with my brother for 11 hours plus in the car. Also meeting that man on the side of the road somewhere outside of Connecticut.
Yeah, that was a great time. That man was really nice.
We picked him up and we brought him to New York.
And he said, "Thank you, brothers. I love you." And then he faded into the sand.
That's right. And it was fun meeting all the people that we met, including Brent, and having a great time with my brother and all the road snacks and rest stop that was kind of sketchy.
Oh, yeah.
And it was a fun time.
I liked hanging with my brother, eating some food, and sleeping in the hotel was nice.
Not for me, because you snore.
Yeah, that's true. Anyway, Seth, what have you been recently playing? Were you playing anything while we were driving down to Philadelphia?
No, because I was driving.
Oh, yeah.
So you would be the one that was playing games driving while we were riding down. Recently, I was playing the demo for Dustland Delivery. Dustland Delivery is a post-apocalyptic survival business simulator where you scour the waste for profit, complete missions, and grow your trading empire. And you essentially build up a band of adventurers and turn your own city into a major city of the Dustlands. There's always danger around every corner, though, so you got to watch out. I played the demo. You play the intro portion of the game, and it's kind of like Oregon Trail, but in the Fallout universe with an 18-wheeler. So you have an 18-wheeler, and you're in this town, and in order to, you have to go to other towns. You have to sleep and rest and manage all those people's needs. You have to have enough food in order to get over to certain other places, and weapons to fend off any scavengers and all that stuff. And you can upgrade your truck as you go along. I wasn't able to do that because it was the demo, but I did play through the entirety of the demo. It was kind of reminded me also a little bit of like Gazillionaire, where you have like buying mechanics where you're trying to buy stuff at low prices and sell them for high prices and all that stuff. So a lot of good times. I may pick it up when it comes out in 2024 sometime, but it's being developed by Neutron Star Studio and published by Fairlight Games. But yeah, it's called Dustland Delivery, and I'm actually now thinking about playing some Gazillionaire because of it. Zach, what have you recently been playing?
Seth, recently I've been playing Robotnik's Revenge, released in 2008 by a person that goes by the name of Colin C10.
That sounds like a legitimate game developer.
Yeah, well, it's a hack. It's not like a game that was officially released. It was a hack of Sonic 2, and it's a boss rush hack. So it includes 17 bosses from Sonic 1 and 2, and your job is to either go through them in time attack mode or go through them in survival mode. Survival mode is you see how long you can go before you die. You get 3 lives and no rings. In time attack, you are given rings just before each boss, which does make it a little bit easier, but it is timed from the beginning to the end, and if you die, the timer doesn't stop, so it keeps going. And it's a neat little way to replay this game. It's done in the Sonic 2 engine, so it's familiar, but it's kind of fun to try out either tackling these bosses as fast fast as you can, or doing it in a way to see if you can survive all the bosses in Sonic 2 and Sonic 1. I did the time attack mode. My time was 11 minutes, 51 seconds, and 89 milliseconds, which gave me an A rank, which I was pretty proud of. But it's definitely a game that I think you can try again and again to see if you can make it even faster. I definitely know that I got held up during the Casino Night boss because when I was trying to leave the boss arena, it's kind of like a half pipe, I got like launched around in circles, so I had to like reset myself and jump out. And then I also got held up during the Labyrinth Zone boss just because I got hit with an enemy and I like fell down a bit. In the Labyrinth Zone boss, you have to climb up this like thing. So that did set my time a bit. I feel like if that didn't happen, I might have been able to beat it maybe under 10 minutes, but alas, I did not. But it's definitely a game I will play again because it's just fun to do time attacks like this. And if you're a fan of the Sonic games, you want to try a unique challenge, I recommend Robotnik's Revenge. Well, today we're doing something a little differently. We're kind of doing a sequel to our Super Mario Bros. Super Show episode that we did a while ago. During that episode, I mentioned that the Super Mario Bros. Movie is kind of a whole different mess of worms, and we would tackle that in an upcoming episode. Well, the moment is here. We are tackling the Super Mario Bros. Movie, the 1993 movie, I should clarify, not the 2023 movie. So we're still keeping in our theme of older than 10 years. But before we get into talking about the history of the Super Mario Brothers movie, Seth, do you have any memories of the Super Mario Brothers movie?
Yeah, I think my memories are, I recall it, but I also recall it in the same vein that I recall the show. So okay. I'm pretty sure, and I think I talked about this in the show episode when we talked about the show. Pretty sure I get it confused with the movie. But in the movie, Bowser is a reptile, isn't he?
He looks like a man, and then he turns into a reptile later.
And in the show, he is a reptile?
Well, in the show, he's a cartoon.
In the show, he's a cartoon. I remember Bowser Man turning into a reptile, and I remember that part of the movie. But, like, for me, it all blends together. Like, if I think of Mario, I think of the wrestler who portrayed him in the show.
Yeah.
I don't think of him as the actor who portrayed him in the movie.
Yeah, makes sense. I mean, you'd been watching them around the same time, so
yeah.
I can definitely see them blending together.
And to be honest, I really like the Mario games. Like, I really like the SNES and NES Mario games. One of the like first games that I usually boot up when I have any sort of new device or something to play older games on. But I wasn't super into all the merchandise.
Yeah, that's fair.
So like I never really got into the movies. I did see the newest Mario movie in theaters. And I didn't hate it.
Yeah, I didn't either. I thought it was very inoffensive.
I didn't know if they did anything new, but I didn't feel like my time that I spent watching it was not wasted.
Yeah, that's fair.
So what about you? What about your memories?
I have a very distinct relationship with the Super Mario Brothers movie. I first remember watching it, or at least part of it, back when we were at our aunt's apartment, and I think we were there for the holidays. We might have just been there. We were playing board games in the living room, and on the TV was the Super Mario Brothers movie, and I think it was just showing on like the whatever channel they had, and the scene that was on was Mario and Luigi when they first get suited up in their green and red outfits. It's actually toward the end of the movie, and they're about to board an elevator, and they get on the elevator and they start dancing with the Goombas. It's a weird sequence, but I remember it really I remember being on the ground looking up and watching the movie. And then later, I remember renting the tape and watching it a lot. And then later, we got a copy of the tape and I would watch it a lot. And then later, I got a copy of the DVD and I remember watching it a lot. I just really liked it for some reason, and I have a weird soft spot for it. I, in general, like watching bad movies. I think they're fun to watch. But I think Super Mario Brothers is a little different than that. It's a movie that has a weird amount of heart to it. It just feels like they tried so hard to make a good movie and it came out so bad. To get into the history, though, of this movie, video games are frequently adapted into movies or live-action television. In recent years, we've seen big budget productions that adapt Sonic the Hedgehog, Uncharted, The Last of Us, Fallout, and so on. It seems every day you hear about some video game being made into a movie or a TV show, and when it comes out, it's mixed. Sonic the Hedgehog did really well. Uncharted, not so well. Last of Us and Fallout did really well. Borderlands doesn't look like it's going to be great. Who knows? It hasn't come out yet. This practice of adapting video games to a different medium goes back to the 1980s, and specifically in Japan. During the 1980s, there was a practice of adapting video games into anime films or TV series. In 1986, the first video game movie would be released called Running Boy: Star Soldier no Himitsu, which was based on the Star Soldier series that was produced by Hudson Soft, which were an arcade game. That same year, another game was released called Super Mario Bros. The Great Mission to Rescue Princess Peach, which was released actually just 1 year after Super Mario Bros. Released. So Mario Bros. The game released in 1985, The Great Mission to Rescue Princess Peach hit theaters in 86. Super Mario Bros. The Great Mission to Rescue Princess Peach, which is a mouthful, is an anime in the isekai genre, which is a genre that primarily involves characters being sucked into a portal that takes them to another dimension. In the anime, Mario is playing a Famicom game when Princess Peach emerges chased by King Koopa. She drops a necklace and goes back into the TV. The necklace then leads Mario and Luigi to a pipe that pulls them into the Mushroom Kingdom. The anime was produced by a company called Grouper Productions in collaboration with Nintendo. The film would be advertised through phone cards, watches, rice containers, a manga, an art book, riddle books, and an original soundtrack released on cassette and vinyl. The film was shown in 200 theaters across Japan. It was later released on VHS and Betamax, and to date there has never been a Blu-ray or DVD release of this film. It's also never been officially subbed or dubbed outside of Japan, so the only way to watch it is through unofficial fan subs. However, a group called Kiniko Video did find a 16mm print and restored it to 4K, so you can watch it in probably the best quality out there if you are interested in watching it, that is.
Outside of Japan, America was also trying to find a way to bring Mario outside of his confines of the cartridge. We, of course, talked about the Super Mario Bros. Super Show back in episode 219, which was not too far ago. So if you wish to go back just quickly through the archives, you'll be able to listen to that episode where we talk about the television show. This show featured live-action segments, and reportedly Nintendo had even given DIC Entertainment full reign to make a movie, but this would not pan out. In 1990, Dustin Hoffman reportedly came up with an idea to make a Mario film. His plan was to star in the film as Mario and cast Danny DeVito as Luigi, but DeVito's schedule would ultimately mean that the project would never see the light of day. The rights to the film would then go on to get purchased by Jake Eberts, and a plan was made to make a movie that would be directed by Penny Marshall, who people may know better as Laverne from Laverne and Shirley. Eberts would leave the project, and Roland Joffe took his place, and he came up with a pitch for the film that was presented to Nintendo of America president Minoru Arakawa. Now, Arakawa was impressed, and Joffe would receive a $2 million contract that gave him control over the character of Mario for a temporary period. Nintendo would keep the merchandising rights, and a deal would be finalized between the company, Leitmotiv, and Nintendo to begin production. Prior to the contract, Nintendo did have some hesitation with having a virtual no-named company create the movie. Joffe suggested that Leitmotiv would be more willing to give Nintendo creative control, but they had no interest in creative control as they truly felt that Mario was strong enough as a brand, and they could exist really beyond their input. They were like, no, Mario can write itself, so we're not doing extra work.
I think, to be blunt, Nintendo didn't care.
Yeah, Nintendo's like, we're still gonna make toy rights, and ultimately, we don't want to do your work for you. So go make a movie for us so we can sell toys. Joffe would ultimately, though, convince Nintendo that he was the right studio to do the movie. The first screenplay was written by Barry Morrow, who had the idea that Mario and Luigi would be going on a road trip. Reportedly, the production title for the script was Drain Man, a reference to the movie Rain Man, which Morrow also written. I'm not going to make any judgments, but it's kind of a lame pun.
I think so.
Yeah, and also on a Rain Man, which is about something entirely different than Mario.
That we know of. So Drain Man could have been just the plot of Rain Man, but with Mario and Luigi instead of Tom Cruise and Hoffman.
Now, the screenplay would not carry through, as other members of the team felt that it was far too serious. So it was just Rain Man with Mario and Luigi. The next script would be written by Tom S. Parker and Jim Genuine, who did a more Wizard of Oz style story that satirized fairy tales and focused on the relationship between Mario and Luigi. This script would also be rejected. Eventually, Parker Bennett and Terry Runte were brought on to write the screenplay. Jaffe would also reach to Harold Ramis to direct, but Ramis was like, nope, not doing that.
Yeah, and at this time, Penny Marshall was also not available to direct, so they had to find someone to direct the project. Jaffe felt the project was going in a direction he wasn't very excited about, so he actually reached out to Rocky Morton and Annabelle Jankel. Morton and Jankel were a married team that previously created the character of Max Headroom. They're also involved in other animation for like music videos and stuff.
Max Headroom is great. I'm a big fan of Max Headroom. If you're not aware of who or what Max Headroom is, he was a television personality that was a talking head. Max Headroom, he is adjacent to this culture and definitely was popular during this time, but has nothing to do with video games, so we really can't really talk about Max Headroom. But since it's come up naturally, I definitely recommend, if you're interested, look up Max Headroom. It's a wild type of guy.
Morton and Jankel came from an animation background, and according to Morton, he called it the Tim Burton School of Filming. And this led to a decision to have a darker tone to the Mario movie to match the 1989 Tim Burton Batman film and the 1990 Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles film.
Those are two movies that were just very, very good.
They were.
And they were both very dark.
Yeah, they said those movies are dark and edgy, so the Mario movie has to be dark and edgy. Morton actually would describe this version of the movie as the quote-unquote true story behind Nintendo's game. So the idea was that, like, this is what really happened, and Nintendo's game was just inspired by these events. They also would take inspiration in the design of the movie from Die Hard, Blade Runner, and Mad Max. In fact, the inspiration from Blade Runner even came down to the fact that David Snyder, the production designer on the Mario film, was previously the art director for Blade Runner. So they had some big names on this project. Bennett and Runte would actually be fired by the producers as screenwriters, and Dick Clement and Ian LaFrennis were brought in to take the comedic script that Bennett and Runte were working and make it a bit more serious. While the script was finally being finalized, the cast would be signed on, with Bob Hoskins playing Mario, John Leguizamo playing Luigi, Dennis Hopper as King Koopa, Samantha Mathis as Princess Daisy, and in supporting roles were Fisher Stevens as Iggy Koopa, Richard Edson as Spike Koopa, Fiona Shaw as King Koopa's lover/assistant Lena, Mojo Nixon as Toad, and Francesca Roberts as Big Bertha. Unbeknownst to Morton Jankel and the cast, the producers brought on Ed Solomon and Ryan Rowe to rework the script that Dick Clement and Ian LaFrencis were working on and make it a more family-friendly movie. The script doctoring occurred before the cast had even arrived on set, so when they got to the studio to film some of the first scenes, they were greeted with a script that was not the script that they agreed to do, which for actors is a very uncomfortable experience, I can imagine, because a lot of times actors say yes to something because they really love the script. So if you show up and it's not the script you read, then you might be like, excuse me.
It's a lot of uncomfortability because you may have agreed to the script and you are now under contract. And the way that some of these contracts go is that you can't take any other roles while you're doing this. And so you've committed, like you've read the script, you know how it's kind of going, and you've committed to the movie and you've agreed to set yourself time aside for that movie. And now you get there, it could be months, right, after you've taken the acceptance, when they're ready for you to finally show up on set. And you show up and you're like, okay, I haven't been able to work for the last couple of months because I have this job that I'm going to do for you guys on a script that I love. And they're like, guess what? Spoiler alert, it's all changed. And you could be like, that's a breach of contract.
In fact, Morton and Jankel were furious. They threatened to leave the production, but ultimately decided to stay as they didn't think any other director would be able to make the movie. And they also apparently had some form of guilt in the sense of wanting to leave, as they felt that they owed it to the cast and crew. Bennett and Runte, though, would eventually be rehired, and they would provide some rewrites and ADR dialogue reworks.
By the time that they finally get to production, this script has been touched so many times by so many different people, and the type of movie has gone from comedy to drama to serious to back to comedy, back to family friendly. Like, it's been bouncing all over the place. Production, to say it lightly, was a mess. Bob Hoskins and John Leguizamo were drunk during most of the production and would heavily drink between takes. In subsequent interviews, both Hoskins and Leguizamo have talked about how much they hated the film, which they probably started to hate when they came to the set and everything was changed to their agreeance.
So they said, pass me the bottle.
Yeah, they said, I don't care about this movie. I'm going to drink and put in my 40 and call it a day. Though Leguizamo has recently stated that he is happy that some people appreciated it. Dennis Hopper, who played King Koopa, also hated his experience, and in 2008 interview called Morton and Jankel control freaks who wouldn't talk before they made a decision. Hopper also stated that he was supposed to be on set for 5 weeks, but would end up being there for 17 weeks due to the amount of rewrites and reshoots, which Dennis Hopper does not want to have 2.5 times the amount of time on set that he was supposed to be on. Hopper recalls that his son had come up to him at one point and asked him why he would take the role of King Koopa in the movie, and Hopper responded by saying, I did that so you could have shoes, to which his son responded, Dad, I don't need shoes that badly. Now, Samantha Mathis also indicated that it was not her proudest moment as an actor, but did say that there was a lot of people who really excited to meet her because she was Daisy. Filming took place from May of 1992 and wrapped in July of 1992. Morton and Jankel would also shoot a lot of scenes that would ultimately get removed, such as an extended scene of the Mario Brothers encountering a rival plumbing company called Scapelli. Koopa would kill a person by turning them into slime, that was cut. Iggy and Spike rapped about Koopa's downfall, which was also cut. However, some of the scenes did survive on a work print copy of the film and preserved. So some of the cut footage is out there to watch, which bonus footage is like that is always fun to see. The film would go on to be released in May of 1993.
Now, what is Super Mario Brothers the movie about? Well, it's a film about the Mario Brothers, specifically Mario and Luigi Mario, because their last name is Mario. They operate a small plumbing business in Brooklyn, New York. After their van breaks down, Luigi meets a young woman named Daisy, who is having trouble with a construction/plumbing company called Scapelli, who has been harassing her fellow students at a local archaeological dig site. You see, Daisy and her team of students have discovered dinosaur bones in Brooklyn, and it could be a find of a lifetime, as one of the dinosaurs appears to have opposable thumbs. So Daisy and Luigi end up hitting it off. They go out for dinner, and Daisy takes Luigi to the dig site to show him what she's been working on. While there, however, Scapelli sabotages the site and floods it.
That's illegal.
Mario and Luigi work to stop the water, but Daisy is kidnapped. When Luigi and Mario catch up to her, she is pulled into a wall, which behaves like liquid. Luigi reaches out, and he's able to grab a crystal necklace that hangs around her neck. Mario and Luigi take a leap of faith and jump into the wall and find themselves in an alternate version of Manhattan, where the world is darker and more frightening. Instead of gasoline, all the cars operate on an electric grid, similar to trolleys. They all have like long poles that shoot out of the back and connect to like cable wires in the air.
Yeah, as you describe this movie, I'm just getting a flood of memories.
Yeah. People wear like spiky outfits. People on the street are selling lizard and dog meat.
It's like Cyberpunk, but with a little Mario spin.
Picture Blade Runner. That is what the Mario world looks like in this movie. There's trash everywhere. There's fungus everywhere. People have weird face tattoos. There's this kind of looming, threatening presence of this President Koopa who has campaign posters everywhere, and his police are incredibly combative.
It's a police state. It's a cyberpunk police state.
My favorite detail, though, let me go a bit more into why everything is like this, and then I'll talk about a favorite detail of mine. So Koopa, President Koopa, is this tyrant who lives in Koopa Towers, which is actually where the World Trade Center center was located in Manhattan. He is desperate to find the crystal that he calls the rock, which was around Daisy's neck, and he knows it was in her possession. The rock you see is a piece of meteorite that fractured when the meteor that killed the dinosaurs struck the Earth in Brooklyn. You see, the meteor didn't just kill the dinosaurs, it also fractured our realities and created a parallel universe where dinosaurs evolved into humans. Koopa's goal is to unite the universes so he can take over our universe, the world. Now, one clever piece of world building here. I mentioned that the cars are all on electrical grids. The reason cars don't run on gasoline is because there is no gasoline, because gasoline is pulled from organic matter of dinosaurs. It's such a clever detail.
Yeah, you can't have gasoline without dinosaurs.
Now, Koopa does capture the Mario brothers. They do escape, and then they realize that Daisy has been taken captive, and they go to save her, and shenanigans ensue. There's some weird moments. Mario at one point dances with a woman named Big Bertha, and there's another moment where they sneak into a dump truck to sneak into the city. There's this old lady that gets really mad. So a bolo goes out on Mario and Luigi, and it's like anyone who brings in these plumbers will get like 1 million Koopa coins. And this old lady walks up to Mario and Luigi, and she's like, "Boys, are you lost?" And Mario's like, "Listen, we're not from around here, lady." And she's like, "Well, let me tell you something." And she pulls out a gun and she goes, "Koopa coins. I need Koopa coins." And she threatens them, and they throw her into like part of the electrical grid, and she gets electrocuted. Wild movie.
Are you boys new here in town?
Lady, we're looking for somebody, and we're from Brooklyn.
Yeah.
You know, boys, it's very dangerous here in this neighborhood. You shouldn't wander around without a weapon.
Yeah.
You got one?
No.
All right. Get him up, suckers! Koopa coins! I need Koopa coins, you lamos!
Yeah, so that movie, because of all the effects, the constant rewrites of the script, the big names in the movie, cost around $48 million. That was the budget. It made $38.9 million at box office, including global ticket sales. So $5 million of the tickets would be sold in the United States, with the rest of the money would be made in the overseas markets. So if you take $48 million as budget and you make $38.9 million, that's what we like to call flop. Especially since $48 million is the movie budget. That is not inclusive of the budgeting that is required to sell the movie, like the marketing portions and all that jazz.
Oh, they made toys based on this movie. There was like a huge commercial thing. There were music videos made. There was a music video for a version of Walk the Dinosaur made for this movie.
So you're talking about possibly another $10 million in marketing blitz, maybe even more. And so that's even more money they lost. At the time, the movie had mixed opinions. The Los Angeles Times said it was a movie that is widely accomplished on one level while wildly deficient on another. The New York Times praised the visual effects and Hoskins' acting, but said the film didn't live up to the spirit of the Nintendo game. But they were like, Bob Hoskins is still a good actor. The Chicago Tribune, however, praised the film, calling it no stinker, and with the most praise going towards Hoskins and Leguizamo. The Washington Post also said that the film was a blast. Siskel and Ebert would go on to give the film 2 thumbs down, primarily stating that it was inconsistent in tone, and they would list the movie as one of the worst movies of 1993.
Beyond the previous comments that we talked about from the cast in later years, the crew also have talked about the film. Morton would call the film harrowing in a 2014 interview, and felt it was uneasy to defend the script that he was given. He also said it was hard to work with Dennis Hopper. Jankel would say, quote unquote, "I do feel in my heart it was a hell of achievement to have made it." Morton felt, they did what they could. Jankel said it was an achievement. Jaffe would defend the film in later years, saying it was an interesting and rich artifact and has earned its place. Shigeru Miyamoto would also say it was, quote unquote, a very fun project that they put a lot of effort into, but did say that he had, quote unquote, some regrets about is that the movie may have tried to get a little too close to what Mario video games were.
Shigeru Miyamoto was like, they flew too close to the sun.
Yes. A lot of people will tell you this movie does not feel like a Mario movie. Shigeru Miyamoto was like, no, this movie is too close to Mario.
I think that Shigeru Miyamoto's problem with the movie is that they try to explain the Mario Brothers world.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So I think that's what his comment is, that they got a little too close to what Mario Brothers are. And you see this happen throughout all sorts of cinematic type of movies, where sometimes you don't need a very detailed explanation for why the world is the world. You don't need to know where Boba Fett came from. You don't need to know that dinosaurs didn't die, so they have to use electric trolleys to get around instead of gasolines. And I think Shigeru Miyamoto was saying, like, no, it should have been fun. This movie was trying to explain a world, which is... It was just weird. It didn't work.
Now, Aaron Horvath, who was one of the co-directors of the recent Super Mario Brothers movie that was released in 2023, would actually praise the 1993 film, so he was a fan of it. The film does have a cult status, not just as a bad movie that people like, but also people who genuinely enjoyed the aesthetic. It has been referred to as cyberpunk by some people. Others have called it an example of a quote-unquote post-literary adaptation. Some have even compared the phrase, "trust the fungus," a phrase spoken by Mario and Luigi.
And now, I'm gonna make a monkey out of you, plumber. Trust the fungus.
To being similar to May the Force Be With You in terms of its power. Now, fans have also created a sequel webcomic, which features the character of Wart from Super Mario Bros. 2 as a mad scientist who tries to take over Dino Hatton being this alternate version of Manhattan where dinosaurs live. And there is also something called the Morton Jankel Cut, which is an unofficial cut of the film released in 2021 that is an extended version featuring footage from the work print we mentioned. This turns the 104-minute film into an 125-minute long film. I have a copy of it, the Morton Jankel Cut, on my computer. I haven't watched it entirely. So the Morton Jankel Cut is really neat. One unfortunate fact about it is that the work print they sourced it from is from a VHS, so the quality dips suddenly.
Oh, whenever
you're pulling
in, yeah.
Yeah. So you go from like standard quality up to like the VHS quality, which they do a good job at cutting between, but it is a little jarring. Now, in 2023, a 30th anniversary Blu-ray was released by Umbrella Entertainment called Trust the Fungus, the Super Mario Bros. 30th Anniversary Collector's Edition. This Blu-ray features deleted scenes and the Lasagna work print that features the same footage used in the Morton Jankel Cut, though they did it in a different way than the Morton Jankel Cut does. They kind of have their own unique take on it. So that's the Super Mario Brothers movie, a movie with a troubled history that I love. And I'm probably going to rewatch. I have a Blu-ray copy of it, not the 30th anniversary one, just a Blu-ray copy that Umbrella put out. I love this. It just looks so good in Blu-ray.
I'll have to watch it again. I haven't seen it in a long time.
Now, getting into our retro rewinds, Seth had me play X-Men Game Master's Legacy for the Game Gear. Released in 1995 and developed by Sega, you can play as either Cyclops or Storm in the beginning, though I think you can unlock other characters. I only was able to play as Cyclops or Storm. I played as Cyclops. I walked back and forth a bit, got shot at, and then I did a very weak punch. I then learned that you can enable your optic blast, and that worked well enough. I was able to kill some enemies, jump around a bit, though you do have a meter, so you can't just like spam your optic blast or else it runs out. The graphics in the game are really nice for a Game Gear game. They're almost 16-bit level quality, just a little squished down. The music, however, is repetitive, a little grating. Overall, it's an okay game. I think it holds up well enough for a Game Gear game, though I don't think the Game Gear as a whole doesn't hold up as a console. So like, it holds up well enough as a game on the Game Gear, but the Game Gear as a whole, good luck getting 6 AA batteries and lasting longer than an hour. Next week, Seth, you can play Bram Stoker's Dracula for the Sega Genesis.
Great. Sounds like fun. Zach had me play Urban Strike, the sequel to Jungle Strike, the sequel to Desert Strike, Return to the Gulf. It was released for the Sega Genesis back in 1994 and over to the SNES and Game Gear in 95 and the Game Boy in 1996. It was developed and published by Electronic Arts, and the game plays like Jungle Strike and Desert Strike, the helicopter games, with updated controls and also some better helicopter noise, which I think I talked about way back when I was playing Desert Strike randomly, that the helicopter noise is annoying. It gets better as the games go on. Like Desert Strike is probably the most annoying noise, and then Jungle Strike is bearable, and then Urban Strike you're playing like a helicopter on stealth mode. It's pretty good. The plot is as silly as all the other ones, with the game taking place where this guy is trying to take over the world and he's got a super weapon and they infiltrated his organization, and then he discovered the mole. So then they have to bring the commander out he's on vacation, and he's in Hawaii on vacation. The commander is you as the player. And because you're on vacation in Hawaii, the super weapon is also in Hawaii. And so they're like, convenient, get over to this island in 30 minutes so you can take off on your helicopter and start killing people. And you find out that Ego, who is a co-pilot in Jungle Strike, he was the mole in the evil enemy's organization, and he gets blown up in the intro.
Ego.
So Ego does die. I don't know if he's dead forever, but he was in a car that exploded. So though he's in an elevator and he's like going down, I think. The elevator has all these squares and it's lighting up, and it looks like he's coming down. And then the guy gives Ego orders to be like, hey, go do these things. And Ego's like, all right, I'm leaving. And it looks like he goes back up. Like he's like, I was like, I don't think that's where the exit is, Ego. But he gets on the phone and he eventually he pulls up. Sad day. But it plays like Desert Strike and Jungle Strike. You have your map, you have your helicopter, you have to go around and accomplish all your objectives. I don't know if it actually tells you. One of the objectives in the first mission is to get these mirrors, and I wasn't sure where I needed to drop the mirrors, so I brought one of the mirrors all the way back to the original hangar, and I guess the A button just drops the mirror instead of launching the missile when you have it. So I dropped 2 mirrors just randomly, and then I realized I had to bring it to a barge, and I had to get 4 mirrors. So I don't know if I think I soft locked the first level, but it's fun. I would play Urban Strike some more. I probably will play it some more. It's just like, if you like Desert Strike and you like Jungle Strike and you want more missions in Desert Strike and more missions in Jungle Strike, just play Urban Strike. It's great. It is the sequel to Jungle Strike, and it plays like it. But definitely it holds up, and check it out, especially if you like helicopter games like that. Next week, Zach, if you follow along, I've been giving Zach X-Men games from the beginning of X-Men's appearing in video games. We started out on, I think, the Atari, and we've made our way up through the Game Gear and the Sega Genesis. And this would be the time where I would give Zach to play X2 Clone Wars. However, I don't want to give Zach such a great game. So instead, you can play another game, and that's the game that comes after X-Men 2 Clone Wars, and that's X-Men vs. Street Fighter.
Perfect. Sounds good.
Thanks everyone for listening today. We really appreciate everyone coming in and listening and enjoying the episode. If you want to send us any feedback, or if you want to suggest an episode like Andy did for our last week's episode, you can always send us an email at classicgamingbrothers@gmail.com. You can follow us on our social medias, Facebook, Instagram, Twitch, or Twitter. Our Facebook, Instagram, and Twitch are all at Classic Gaming Brothers, and our Twitter is CG Brothers Pod, as well as our Blue Sky, CG Brothers Pod. You could always follow us there on our social medias to know whenever we release an episode, which is always Sunday. You can also follow us on whatever podcast app you're listening on to that, whether that be Spotify, iTunes, or YouTube. We're also now on YouTube, so if you listen to the show, you can always, even if you listen to it on Spotify, you can always head over to YouTube and give us an old subscribe. We like to have the subscribes. It helps, I guess, but it's fun getting YouTube views as well as podcast listens, so feel free to swing by over to the YouTube channel and give us a follow. We won't put out any content beyond our episodes on YouTube, but who knows? Maybe one day we will. So subscribe and ring that bell, I guess. Don't ring the bell, just subscribe. Anyway, thank you for listening again. Zach, am I missing anything else?
Don't play games like my brother.
And don't play games like my brother.
I've been Zach.
And I've been Seth.
And we've been the Classic Gaming Brothers.
That's right.
That's right.